Our first session of the day is a poetic celebration titled Rhapsody Road, Poetic Journeys Through Dreams by Mr. Ravi Shankar Etteth. He's an author, journalist, and political cartoonist. He's also a thinker. He's mixed AI with words in his latest book, Rhapsody Road, which makes the book quite interesting. So we'll wait for the conversation to happen. Joining him for a conversation is Ms. Lipika Bhushan, founder, Market My Book, and host, The Indic Pen. So please give it up for both our speakers. May I request you two to please join us on stage. Please welcome them with a huge round of applause. And while they take their seats on stage, let me also inform our readers. Mr. Etteth has written several novels, some of which include Killing Time in Delhi, The Brahman, The Book of Shiva, The Gold of Their Regrets, The Tiger by the River, and he's also written biographies of leaders like Mr. Pavan Chamling, Mr. Naveen Patnaik, and Mr. Raman Singh. So you'll find all the books at the bookstore at El Opera, and you can get it signed from the author. So please welcome our speakers once again, and over to you, Lipika ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. A very good morning to all of you, and it was about 2 weeks ago when I was speaking to Kunal and thereafter to Ajay ji about one of the poetry sessions that they were planning, and that's when I felt that any of the festivals this year would be incomplete if we don't have Ravi's poetry being talked about on these platforms, because so far, and especially for anybody who knows Ravi personally, so far he is a prominent name in the media. He has written some really best-selling novels, thrillers, but this was the first time even I got to know about the poets in Ravi. And the day he sent the first few poems to me a few months ago, that's when I realized that actually the unfiltered Ravi comes through this poetry, not even his political pieces or cartoons that he does. So I would like to thank Ajay ji for hosting this session, allowing us to host this session here. And I would like to welcome the poet, Ravi Shankar Etteth, today. While my association with Ravi goes back a long time, but I think my association with the poetry, the poet in Ravi goes, it's a very newfound side of him that I think I'm loving more than any of the other, sides that he has, the many hats that he wears. This is his first of the many books, I'm sure, that are coming out on poetry, on his view of life. It is a collection of poems that, while some pieces reflect longing, some others reflect passion, and yet the political side of him you can find in some of the poems here as well. Freedom we need to give every poet, every writer, every creator to express what he feels around him. But my first Ravi today would be from the fact that, Ravi, when and how did this transition happen? Or was it something that was always there but was hidden from the world, and suddenly you decided after decades of writing that now, because more often than not, people start with poetry. When they start writing, they start with poetry. But you actually, somewhere in the midway have come out with a book of poems. So tell us, where did this journey start?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. See, my favorite position in life is horizontal. Okay, I like lying down a lot, especially you show me a nice couch, I am on it, not sitting but lying down. So in my office, I've always had a couch. So someone sent, most of my work I do, I mean, even the stories are clear, it's everything I do on the couch, unless I'm writing. So what happened was that one day, people send you poems and articles on WhatsApp. So someone sent me a poem which is very nice, very, very nice. And she knows the story, so I don't know why she's asking me the same question. So I said, okay, and I'm very competitive. So I said, okay, let me see if I can do something better. I had nothing else to do. So I wrote a poem and I liked it. I said, let me try some more. And then I wrote a few of them. Then I showed it to Lipika. I was rather, unsure whether I should publish it because I write, fiction, I write biographies, I write editorials, and I write political columns. So I was wondering whether I should kind of. But she was said, they should kind of see the light, as one would say, and that's how this book of poetry came out. And the thing is that writing poetry is an addiction. Writing poetry is an addiction because it's a novel. You have a narrative which goes on. I mean, there's a narration. There's kind of I personally think easier to write a novel than easier to than write a short story or poem. So poem, I would put it like a short story in verse. That's what I would kind of call a poem, but slightly more subtle. So there you have it.
And there are, pages where the poetry is only in 3 sentences, while there are some poems that run into pages. Uh, when you talk about the writing part of it, and when you say that it's easier writing fiction and more difficult writing poetry, which part of it is difficult? The condensing of it into 3 sentences, or expansion of it into a very small thought into several pages?
See, a novel has a plot. I mean, it's got characters, it's got kind of events, it's got kind of, I mean, a novel is more of a dynamic progression from one event to the other. There is an exchange of conversations, actions, everything between individuals, and there's a plot, and it ends somewhere, right? So you got to plan it. But once you plan it, you got a structure in your head, it's easy to write it. Another great thing about writing a novel, at least where I'm concerned, is that after a few chapters, the novel takes on a life of its own. So suddenly some characters pop up whom you never intended to kind of be there. So a novel is, let's say, kind of, it's also it's a process of a discovery of something that doesn't exist. It exists only in your head. While a poem is, how do I put it? Like, it's like catching a bird mid-flight, It's like, if water is flowing and you put a little paper boat and let kind of float it. So
How
you see,
poetic, yeah.
yeah, that's my, that's what you. So, and a poem is about sending a subliminal message. Well, a novel is more, what do you call it? The message is more, more tangible. Well, a poem is, it's just something subliminal about a poem which attracted me. So it was a medium I had never really explored. So I found that is the difference between writing a novel and writing a poem.
And yet what you say is that I had no intention of ever writing poetry in my life. I saw it as a self-indulgent activity unless the poets in question were Neruda or Byron. They were more than poets. They were historians of beauty and pain. Why so? Why do you think that while this is your first book in poetry, and this is something that I am not asking you to, but from a critical point of view, why were you always so, why are you so critical of most of the other poets, and until especially when you're not really exploring that genre yourself?
See, I am critical as a person. I mean, that's my nature. I mean, I see something, I'm looking at a critical part of it because the nice part of it is already visible to your eye. That's one.
True.
Two is that, let me be facetious. I am being slightly facetious. You can listen to Ghalib in my Khanum, but you can't read Mulkraj Anand in a bar, can you? So poetry has an ambience of its own. So the lyricism of poetry is a lot to do with creating an atmosphere as well as kind of relating an atmosphere. Well, a novel is much longer in scale, in range. poem में क्या होता है, you write the poem and let the guy kind of, take it, the reader take it on in his head and go where he wants. I mean, he wanders through the corridors of his soul, or he wanders through the, or he sits and examines the facets, the mirrors of his intellect, or whatever. I mean, a poetry is a personal, different to each person. How you read a poem is not.
True. The
So
interpretation
is very different. So, but the fact of the matter is that I find romantic poetry extremely silly. It's not that silly in the sense that I haven't. I know that's how my expression. I mean, it's not a very strong expression in my opinion. So I forget the beauty of the words. I forget the beauty of the phrases and this thing, and the linkages. And I find that it's what I found. Let me put it this way: it's in the past now. Now that I've written, and so I've crossed over to the other side. So I used to find it kind of not a bit kind of soft. It's like I found a bit soft. So that's basically what it is.
And yet, when you say that the reader has the freedom when it comes to poetry to interpret it the way he or she wants to, and yet you introduce something which actually kind of ties your poem to the visual expression. And for every poem in this book, you have added a visual expression of how you see it.
Right.
So I have two questions emerging out of it. The first one I would like you to answer first is the one about this guiding of, was it because you wanted to guide the reader to understand the poem the way you want to suggest, or was it just that you wanted to express your own way and let the reader also interpret the visuals the way they want to?
So I believe that something to have impact. I believe something which would actually is beautiful or nice or whatever. The person who creates it must like it first. It should give him or her joy. When a poet writes a poem, that the person likes it or not likes it. So you're sending it out into the unknown. You're really not sure who's going to see it. Whether it's a moron or it's a intellectual or it's a dancer or it's a kind of auto rickshaw driver. Absolute no idea. But you're sending it out, right? So, I am interested in technology. I've always been interested in technology, and I've kind of floated along with all the changes in technology. And I was, AI is the new thing, so I started experimenting with AI. Then I started reading about how AI is challenging the careers of graphic artists, etc., etc., etc. So I started fooling around with it, and then, much to my amazement, I found that it was producing interesting visuals. And then I said, okay, just why stick to one software? So then I kind of tried another software. Then I started kind of mingling more softwares. Then I started kind of taking the pictures on, on the Photoshop. I'm just explaining the process. But the fact is that the art visual should create, which capture the mood of the poem. So what I'm trying to kind of give to the reader is first a visual mood of the poem, and then which seduces them into reading the poetry. So usually what happens is that, like in journalism, especially with magazine journalism, first thing you read is headline, and then you read the blurb, then you read the intro, then you start reading the story. So in this it's much simpler, because a person who's attracted by a visual would be intrigued. For example, there's a visual of this, of an empty bed with just a bird sitting somewhere. So you're intrigued. What is the bird doing? What's the bird doing there? Who was in the bed? So you want to kind of, and all this pass through the synapses of the brain, like in microseconds. And I know the process. So immediately, okay, the person is drawn into finding out what's going on. So that is the reason I started kind of, not only do the illustration, but to capture the mood of the illustration, which actually in many cases took me a long time to get it right.
I'm sure. And the book has, with every piece, every poem, some stunning illustrations, which, as Ravi just explained, are out of AI. But now coming to the second question, AI also requires one to have the sense to give the right
Prompts.
And how did that happen? And how does the entire process take place?
See, I was very clear that the visuals in the illustrated in the poems have to be Indian. The women have to be Indian. The men have to be Indian. Because many of the poems really you can't really fix it to the geography, any topography. But I want to make sure that you find complete Indian connect immediately. That's why the women have saris, the men have pajamas or dhotis or whatever. So it was not a easy thing to immediately kind of get a drawing, because you had to go through various prompts and various prompts in various styles, and sometimes you mix the styles. So you were actually one illustration could take you maybe one day to do, or maybe it'll take like half an hour to do, maybe it'll take 15 minutes to do. All depends, because you have to write a prompt and choose the. See, I'll tell you. For example, like you can say a prompt like do a lithograph engraving in black and white of a bench by the sea and footsteps passing by. So you get that mood, but maybe the footsteps you want to pass by is like this, but maybe he'll walk like this. So then you start doing it again. Then the bench will be somewhere else and the footsteps will be somewhere else. So you have to keep doing this until you get it right. And sometimes you want a mezzotint effect. Sometimes you want a watercolor effect. So you need to kind of match that with another one, so that you get the mood.
And the visual that Ravi is sharing here is from his poem The Vanishing, and it's a haunting poem. It's a poem that every one of you will have your own interpretation, as he rightly said, but the way it's been interpreted through visuals adds to the flavor. I'll take the liberty of reading it for everybody.
That's nice. I think she should I think she's reading the poem on the phone also.
How easily we walk, discarding footsteps on the sand, pretending we are going places. Skin of my heart, my willing wave, my softest thought, my rare dove. When the tide comes in, the sea will leave no sign of the route we took, scoured by a million furrows of loss and longing, that even ancient waters cannot scrub away. What is the longing and loss, and why most of your poems have that sense? And that's why I started this conversation with the fact that it's very unfiltered you. What is it, what part of it is that continues to long, and still you call romance, you don't like romantic poetry?
No, I see. I don't necessarily associate loss with romance. I mean, romance, I don't mean, love affair. No, but I really believe that 99.9% of human beings are unfulfilled as people. Okay. They hide they feel a sense of loss. It's either, a millionaire wants to be a billionaire. He thinks he's missed a lot of opportunities. A man who was in love with a girl who believes him, abandons him for another person, feels a sense of loss. A person whose child dies feels a sense of loss. The whole world is so full of unfulfilled ambitions, unfulfilled relationships, unfulfilled emotions, which we hide beneath our facade. Not necessarily a facade, because we have to be functional. But at the same time, in solitary moments, one does feel that sunset in your mind. And I just decided to kind of, connect with that, and on a more universal level.
And does the humor and sarcasm in some places come from some bitterness, or is it more out of observation of others, the way you are currently suggesting that 99% people?
See, I'm a political cartoonist. So you have to, give me that break and expect me to be satirical. And it's part of my makeup.
But that brings me to the politics of poetry. And I think while most of your poems have been on love and longing and loss, and there are some poems which are reflection of how you view, and again, which is a very sarcastic view of the politics of the country, and one of it is Awakening, where uh, you have reflected upon Kumbh. And here I would like to rather ask you about uh, whether, in the first place, currently, the country does see a fear of not being able to express their political opinions openly, which is why probably you try to do that through your poems.
See, I mean, I don't know the politics of it, but I'm essentially a Hindu, right? I mean, I'm very deeply a Hindu. I am religious. Uh, I I believe in the beauty of Hinduism. I believe in the beauty of its legends, its etc. 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 But over a period of time, I have found that the sanctity of Kumbh, at least in the circles I move in, or the photographs you see, has been taken over by a thing. I want to be seen there. You know, I mean, I know socialize is Ajiya Jana hai. I know a girl who basically takes selfies going the 3 times. She can say take selfies with various people. So I found VIPs kind of rushing with uh, traffic lights or whatever. I mean, like those red lights. So it suddenly seemed that there were two kumbhs. There were a kumbh for the genuinely devout, and there was a kumbh for people who wanted to be seen and say, "Acha, main kumbh chala gaya." It's like main Cannes chala gaya, to see the film festival, or I went to kind of south of France to kind of take a warm my body. So I saw that these two kumbhs, which went. That is why it ends with that. It ends with that mother and child. See, yes, I'll just break the poem into very, very, very small thing. First is the kumbh. I mean, the whole, I'm sorry for the word, but the tamasha, I mean, it has been made into tamasha by a lot of people. The greed, to be there, etc., etc., etc. And then in the end, there is this, away from there is this little temple, which is a very ancient temple. And a mother is having a bath and she's telling a child to kind of come and bathe with her, and she's in Nebo Thanda hai. The child says, Nebo Thanda hai. Far away, the kumbh is happening. I mean, the bureaucrats, the politicians, the doctors, the pickpockets, everything is happening far away. But here, then the child, eventually she persuades the child to kind of come in. The child laughs and throws water at the mother, and the bell peals in the temple. So, and God smiles. So, the fact is that a person's individual relationship with God, if you look at it in our mythology, in our stories, Krishna, I mean, Draupadi has a one-to-one relationship with Krishna. It is not a Pandava, 5, 6 people having it. So there is a one-to-one relationship with God, which is even Bhasmasura is a one-to-one, thing, eventually he can. So this individual relationship with God, the individual relationship with the soul with the divine, is something which I have always believed in. So when I see, and I come from Kerala, where the temples are very different, the rituals are very different, वहाँ पे भीड़ होता है. I mean, it's वहाँ पे तमाशा बहुत होता है. But the fact is that the Hindu has a individual relationship with God. It's a personal relationship. So sometimes I find there's a great difference with the north and the south, by the way. Like, we don't say Shivji, we say Shivan. We don't say Kishanji, we say Krishnan. Yanta Krishna. What is this Krishna? Yeah, very Shivji mat. So the whole relationship is more personal. So God, you create God, you look at God with a view of awe and reverence, at the same time a certain intimacy, which I've seen you have it with Bajrang Bali. That intimacy you have it with Bajrang Bali, but not with everybody. So what I try to kind of show through this politically was that beyond beyond the red lights and beyond the selfies and beyond all kinds of stuff, there is a Hinduism which is genuinely divine, which actually celebrates its relationship with God, and that is what the Kumbh does. The Kumbh is an individual, it's a pilgrim. It turns everybody into a pilgrim and establishes relationship with the pilgrim and God. But behind this natak, that gets lost. That is a basic political message I want to give.
And you've
Sorry
still
if I
not
offended anybody,
no,
but
but you've still not answered the fact that whether it has become more and more difficult to express your political opinions in the current scenario, especially for poets and writers of a certain.
Lipika, I'm not a liberal. Okay, so I cannot answer the question in a way which will
In a poetic way, we can try.
See, if you are saying that you have a section of political expression which is not acknowledged or which is difficult for a poet to kind of do, I mean then that is between the establishment and the poet. That's the max I can say.
And still, this was a very last minute entry into the book, if I remember. Awakening was quite right at the end
Yeah.
when it was getting into printing. Uh, so, here I want to take a step back and probably ask you about the craft a little bit more as to whether it happens for you at the spur of the moment and then you sit down and write, or you take some time to mull over it, improve it in your head, and then sit down and write.
No, I don't mull over anything. I believe that the subconscious takes care of it. Because see, what is it? I mean, the commentary is very simple. I mean, God is simplicity for me. God is not showing off. So, when you look at, see, you keep reading, you keep watching TV, you see this, you listen to people. So, all this may be accumulating in your head, right? So, when you sit and write, it just flows. It is not a deliberate, ye line scratch out. I've never had that. I don't believe in writer's block at all. Either you write or you don't write. Forget it. So I don't really have a problem writing a poem or writing a novel or writing a short story. It doesn't take me any effort. I don't mean to be arrogant. It doesn't take me any effort because you have to be very clear about what you got to say. So I don't sit there. Then, yes, in the end, before it kind of, goes to the publisher, then I sit and kind of, recognize, oh, अच्छा, ये बहुत ठीक है, ये बहुत ठीक है. ये नहीं कि लिखने के लिए I have to kind of sit and, keep scratching out. No, it's a flow.
Let's move a little ahead into the book and the fact that not only have you expressed these poems through visuals, but also then used AI to add music to it. Some of your poems you've converted into, full-fledged
Song.
songs. And before we move a little ahead into asking how that idea occurred to you, can you probably play one of these for the audience to understand? So there are poems in this book which Ravi has already put into, he's added music to it and used AI very efficiently. Most of the writing world is scared of AI, and here we have a writer and a poet who's putting it to the best use he can. So he's put a lot of these poems into songs, and probably an album is out soon with all of it. Yeah, maybe a short one if you can play, and some of you who have the book. Okay, sure, sure. A minute would be good. Maybe you can start with the Kumbh one since we ended the last segment of this conversation with that, and then move on to.
400 million souls and more in the greatest Instagram show in the world, to be seen and heard by man and God. Dip, baby, dip. Yep.
A time of great germ empires for demons squirming and screaming in the fire of God's salvation point, where the three rivers meet on the sandy shore of the city of bliss. Influencers and Instagrammers, silver screen stars and social media mains, photographers and painters, socialites and socialists, kitty party wives and tequila tots, CEOs and clerks, grocers and cab drivers, fashionistas and bureaucrats, politicians and pilers, onthobies and doctors, beggars and bystanders, sitters and shopkeepers, priests and peons, ascetics fierce and naked, charlatans and champions, pickpockets and pundits, in the greatest Instagram show in the world. Dip, baby, dip.
Imagine it takes you to a completely different world.
This entire thing is done by AI, but again, it took me a lot of time because I had to get it right. So then I had to kind of fool around between, I had to mix jazz with blues, I had to kind of, get classic rock with kind of, sax. So, to get it right, I'll now that.
But before before you do that, Ravi, I have one question from you, because you did mention very specifically that the prompt that you gave for the pictures was that of Indian women and men. Then why, and this question has been in my mind for a while, then why for the music you chose something very Western, including the
Yeah,
voices?
right. So basically, the Indian music is in languages. So you will have a song, Rafi Saab singing in, in Hindi, Kishore Kushada singing in, Bengali. You'll have Hemant Kumar singing in Bengali. You'll have Yashoda singing in Malayalam. So our song music, that is music which is set to song, is always in vernacular languages. It is never in English. So it's impossible to get the same effect from an English poem. See, for example, I can set it to Karnataka. I can show it to you right now. No, seriously. No, seriously, it will not sound. It will not. Yeah, exactly. So English works with English music. So if I was writing Hindi, I know you've been dissuading me from writing Hindi poetry. She thinks I'm terrible at writing Hindi poetry. Because you see, my thing is that I like to push the envelope. So I said, ये करते हैं, वो भी करके देखते हैं. That is basically my. So उसको down पर she said, no, you kind of stick to English, don't kind of. So the thing is that about this music is that again I've tried to capture the mood of the poems, and also the mood of the whole ambience. So I'll play you one more, and that's long. So I'll again stick to about a minute.
I'm more of a purist when it comes to poetry, so that's why I keep dissuading you from writing in Hindi. But you can still continue to try. Maybe someday it'll.
Let me see, where is it?
So after this, I would like to open the platform for any questions from the audience. So please keep your questions ready. Maybe a couple of them we'll take.
Just give me a minute.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, this is really my favorite poem because it's like I found it very haunting. Okay. See, this is about roads. Like we all have. Oh, okay. This is a song about roads, right? I mean, जिंदगी में जितने भी रास्ते हमारे सामने आते हैं, कभी-कभी हम खुद रास्ते बन जाते हैं for somebody else. So उस रास्ते पे कौन-कौन चलता है? And वो चलने का इतना याद रहता है. My being a Malayali, my Hindi is like this, so you will kind of forgive me. So what are the roads? Who all have walked on it? Where all do they lead? Sometimes a person becomes a road, Sometimes a memory becomes a road. Sometimes the road becomes a memory. I believe हम सब we are all sown. जैसे क्या बोलते हैं वो सड़कों से सिले हुए इंसान. इतना it's like a net of roads. So this is basically something like that, which includes part of my autobiographical because things I remembered in Kerala, things otherwise. But I just play a little bit of it. That's it.
I don't know what this is. I don't know what it can be or be. Does this road lead to you or away from you? Is it the same road by which my mother waited for her bus? Or my father rode his bicycle to buy fish and fresh flowers? Is it the road I remember on which my grandfather strode with his guns and dogs to shoot white storks that sailed over green paddy, and the road on which he was taken away from me? My first grief, it is a road of 1,000,000 footprints of people I see or don't see and never saw and will never see, moving to their destinations in today or forever. It is the road that is you, or perhaps not you. All I know is it is a road that is yours.
It is so different from
Any questions from the audience before I move ahead? Nobody. Okay, yes, please, yeah. Sure. Can we have a mic there, please?
Hi, sir. I don't have any question, but I want you to upload these songs on online platform so that I can listen every day because I like it so much and I am just having an emotional back right now.
Yeah, I actually I have to get a membership of Spotify, which I haven't tried. 250 rupees hai? You have to.
If you release, I'll
Okay,
pay
so
for
what?
the
No,
Spotify
no, no, hang on.
premiumship.
This is something my editor became very clever. So what is done is we have uploaded this on. It's online. Okay, whatever. Is it? Do you call online?
Okay.
So he said we printed a barcode.
Okay.
So if you scan this, your entire playlist is downloaded on your phones. That's why I asked you 249 rupees as a charge.
Okay, I will buy it
No,
right
kidding,
now
kidding,
after
kidding, kidding.
this.
I'll get it kind of, sorry, not.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Can I ask you a question? Can I take the liberty? So, I too am a journalist, and I keep asking questions to all the AI experts about how AI is threatening to take away jobs, and everybody is concerned, कि अरे हमारा क्या होगा? So the question is, how did this concept come to mind, and especially because literature and technology are considered poles apart. How did that concept come to mind that you can so perfectly blend them, and this is the result, and on top of that, then you call yourself an accidental poet. So
No, it is, I am.
so
See,
too many
sorry.
questions into one, but yes.
No, great.
So just
I'll
want to
go and
know
hide
how
behind
did it
this
come
time.
to your mind?
I'm very uncomfortable with praise, so maybe no, see, I don't think literature and technology is they are not related. I don't think so. They are related because I have to be very put simply. We write poems on a laptop. We use a computer to kind of write your fiction. I use a computer to edit news stories. So the relationship between technology and this thing is quite. And now I believe people even write articles on ChatGPT. So that is one. Two is that if you look at many of the great novels, I mean, whether it be Ramayana, I mean, what is the Pushpak Bhuhan? It is an expression of technology, right? Or you look at, I mean, various things. I mean, I can't right now think of, like, for example, George Orwell's 1984, or you're looking at Isaac Asimov's science fiction. So all this reflect a relationship or a futuristic view or a desire to connect with technology. Essentially, what is technology? It's an instrument which makes your life easier or makes faster, whatever it is. So that's a basic human element. Now, Purana Zamana mein used to have the big cameras, right? So now it's come down to a cell phone. Now I read that your entire life will be on a cell phone. So which means you will start writing on the phones. I mean, I still write on phones. I mean, all these poems are written on this phone, lying down on my couch. So I don't really agree with you that yes, a concept of a writer is what we have. That's why I said of this guy, Devdas type, or like Chetan Bhagat, who's kind of marketing guy. A concept of a writer is very different from what is actually happening today. It's really what is happening today. For example, script writers in the movies, they use ChatGPT, they use Grok, hell of a lot. So I don't really agree that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think I really agree that that is true.
Anybody else?
I quite like the variation in the songs. Both the songs were very different from each other. One was very peppy and very young, and the other was very soulful. So I think it's a great thing for a writer who can write differently. Yeah.
That too, I think it's so creatively rich that a creatively rich mind can display several such facets of him through his not just poetry but even the music. So actually, if you look at it, it's his music that he's created. He's combined different forms and created it.
I'll play again 1 minute. It's so different.
What you see as my mask you fool is my face. You'll be blinded if you see my mask.
Okay, and you see that again. This is so different. It's totally different. Okay, so one second. Sorry. Each song is unique. Okay, each song cannot be duplicated. So it's actually like a singer writing a song and singing in a particular way. Because I'm using prompts, right? I mean, you can see that here. You can see one song has.
But that also needs you to have that sense of music, that sense of,
Well, I don't
yeah.
have people same tone deaf. But you have this one is like classical rock, bass, and something else. So I have to kind of keep mixing it. So if this particular song, the words I gave a prompt again, the same prompts, it'll be a different song. So each song is unique. So that's why when I uploaded it, there's no duplicate of that song. I mean, it's like, Under the Bridges of Paris, so Etteth has sung it, Berlin has sung it. But same song is sung by different people. But here, both the song and the people, singers and the words, only the words are the same. Baki sab change. And same thing with illustrations. There's only one off. So you cannot repeat the drawing.
But are you okay with somebody else trying his or her own version of the song as well?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I don't have a problem. I really don't have a problem. I mean, it's not copyrighted right now. I mean, there's no copyright on it. So the copyright where AI is concerned is still in the gray area. So I mean,
So that is one part of it which is a problem. Yeah, sure.
Hello, sir. Well, the music was superb and the poems are amazing. There's no doubt. It's just that I have one question.
I think you need to hold slightly
is,
closer.
is it better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we consider when we write AI generated, someone writes AI generated article or a poem, it's considered like a frowned upon, it's AI generated. The poem is AI generated. However, like, do you think the same applies to the music as well? I mean, if somebody is creating the music from, via AI is fine, but writing a poem or an article, I mean, can we put them in the same bracket or all three things? Because everything is creative here, right?
See, for example, I didn't look at it ethically at all. I
Okay.
looked at it as an interesting experiment. And I think it worked because, I mean, it was before I even created a playlist. I did fly it by various friends, including her. And she has a musical ear and a couple of other friends who are actually musicians, singers. And I mean, normal people also. So I found that the experiment worked. They all like you guys liked it. So, so I think that I have not stolen somebody else's words. I mean, it's my poetry, it's my thing. It's something I created myself, from the songs to the tunes to everything. So I don't think there is any. So no, I don't know about the AI laws.
So I
don't know.
think, the writing part is not where he's used AI. It's only converting it into visuals, and music is where the AI has come into play. And I think that conversation about the ethical part of it and whether, who holds the copyrights is something that probably will, as we go, we'll get better answers to it. But for now, I think it's a brilliant experiment that Ravi has done with this book. And each one of you, just as he said, only have to spend $295, not just for the poems, but the visuals, but also the music, the great music that he's created. And it also sets, it's the first in the entire industry. I can't think of anybody else in the world who's tried this. And it sets a very good example for future poets to come up with such experiments, because poetry, if we want to keep it alive, we want to save it, lesser and lesser of publishers are publishing poetry because for them it's a non-commercially viable proposition. But if we want to save it, we need to come up with ideas and such experiments to reach a much larger audience. So thank you so much, Ravi,
You're welcome.
for giving us this book and giving me this opportunity to share the
Giving
stage
me
with
this
you.
opportunity.
And
By the way, I
thank
owe you $50 because I didn't know it was 300 rupees. I thought it was 250.
Thank you so much for giving us a patient ear, and see you around. And please do, he's around for a bit. If you want a copy signed, please pick a copy and he'll be happy to sign copies.
I'm very happy and thank you for the Delhi Literature Festival to have me, inflict me on you. So thank you.